Welcome to Capital Catch-Up, your deep dive into the latest action from the halls of Congress. I am Victor.
And I am Leanie. Today we have a lot of ground to cover, from a potential phase-out of the penny to major shifts in daylight saving time, banking regulations, and a wave of new high-level nominations.
Let us start with something that affects nearly every American's daily routine, daylight saving time. House Resolution 139, also known as the Sunshine Protection Act of 2025, is back in the spotlight. This bill aims to make daylight saving time permanent year-round, ending our biannual practice of changing the clocks.
That is right, Victor. It amends the Uniform Time Act of 1966 and the Calder Act to establish this permanent framework, though it does allow states that currently exempt themselves from daylight saving time to keep their existing standard time if they choose. But before a bill like this can even be debated on the House floor, there is a specific procedural step. That is where House Resolution 1423 comes in.
Exactly. In congressional terms, House Resolution 1423 is a special rule. It sets the legislative framework, defining the parameters for debate, the amendment process, and procedural waivers. In this case, House Resolution 1423 cleared the path not just for the daylight saving bill, but also for three other key pieces of legislation.
Yes, those include House Resolution 8595, which makes appropriations for national security and the Department of State, House Resolution 9237, which improves benefits and administration for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and House Resolution 1181, which is the Protecting Privacy in Purchases Act.
Let us talk about that last one, House Resolution 1181. It is a highly debated topic involving consumer privacy and firearms. The bill prohibits payment card networks and financial entities from assigning specific merchant category codes that uniquely identify firearms retailers.
Right, it prevents financial systems from separating gun shops from general merchandise or sporting goods stores, which restricts the tracking of firearm and ammunition purchases. The Attorney General would enforce this, investigate complaints, and seek injunctions against violators. It also preempts state and local laws that might require such codes, though it does not allow for private lawsuits and still lets banks use standard fraud detection protocols.
Moving from digital transactions to physical cash, let us discuss House Resolution 3074, the Common Sense Act. This bill could change what is in your pocket by ordering the Secretary of the Treasury to stop producing 1-cent coins for general circulation.
But the penny would still be legal tender, Victor. To make this work, the bill creates a rounding system for cash transactions to the nearest 5 cents. It also lets the Treasury adjust the composition of the nickel to make production more efficient. Importantly, the Federal Reserve must design a strategic plan to manage this phase-out, with a specific focus on protecting low-income and underbanked populations who rely heavily on cash.
Speaking of financial systems, the House is also looking at House Resolution 6556, the Failing Bank Acquisition Fairness Act. This bill tightens oversight when failed or failing banks are acquired, specifically limiting when federal agencies can waive deposit and liability concentration limits.
Right, under this act, regulators can only waive those limits if they have clear and convincing evidence that it is necessary to prevent severe economic disruption. They also have to prove no other qualified, non-prohibited bids are available, and they must write a detailed public report to Congress. It even blocks agencies from considering bad faith bids that violate concentration limits when trying to resolve bank failures at the lowest cost to the Deposit Insurance Fund.
Over in the Senate, there is a major push for our aging population with Senate Bill 2120, the Older Americans Act Reauthorization Act of 2025. This bill extends and modernizes federal support for aging services through the fiscal year 2030.
It targets several key areas, Victor. It enhances mental health and substance use disorder services, improves nutrition programs by offering medically tailored and grab-and-go meals, and expands support for family caregivers and direct care workers. It also addresses social isolation by coordinating broadband access and strengthens protections for Native elders and those in long-term care.
Turning to national security and emergency readiness, we have House Resolution 7574, the ELO Realignment and Strategic Engagement Reform Act of 2026. This bill mandates a complete reorganization of the Department of Homeland Security's Engagement, Liaison, and Outreach Office to cut down on redundancy. To keep the pressure on, it freezes the office's budget and staffing until the Secretary submits a realignment plan.
And speaking of extreme scenarios, House Resolution 3106, the Weatherizing Infrastructure in the North and Terrorism Emergency Readiness Act of 2025, requires the Department of Homeland Security to run a major emergency exercise. They will test how the nation would handle a terrorist attack during an extreme cold weather event, looking at cascading failures across critical infrastructure.
We also see aviation security addressed in House Resolution 8770, the Safeguards Act of 2026. This requires that revenue from the 9/11 security fee paid by airline passengers actually goes to aviation security, rather than being diverted. Starting in fiscal year 2028, $500 million annually will go to the Aviation Security Capital Fund, and $250 million will go to a new Aviation Security Checkpoint Technology Fund.
In a related security measure, House Resolution 9391, the Reimbursable Screening Services Program Extension Act of 2026, extends the TSA's reimbursable screening program through fiscal year 2031 and expands the number of participating airport locations from 8 to 14.
And let us not forget House Resolution 8168, the Major Non-NATO Ally Terror Threat Assessment Act. This requires biannual, classified assessments of terrorist threats originating from major non-NATO ally countries, with a focus on their use of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies.
On the election front, 2 bills have passed the House and moved to the Senate Committee on Rules and Administration. First is House Resolution 8738, the FEC Administrative Improvements Act, which modernizes campaign finance by requiring electronic filing for electioneering communications and allowing political committees to make disbursements through modern payment methods instead of just paper checks.
Second is House Resolution 3535, the Stop Foreign Funds in Elections Act. This amends the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971 to ban foreign contributions and donations in state and local ballot initiatives, referenda, and recall elections.
Now, let us look at the recent daily proceedings. On July 15, 2026, the House focused heavily on veterans, passing House Resolution 6007 and House Resolution 5362 to name Department of Veterans Affairs clinics in New Jersey and Georgia after Anthony Tony J. Gallopo and Colonel Michael H. Boyce. Members also celebrated Indiana FFA state officers and honored the late Maxine Peacock Holly of North Carolina.
Representative Keeley also raised concerns about a California tax increase, asking for federal intervention. Then the day before, on July 14th, the House held morning-hour debates on immigration enforcement, the 70th anniversary of the Federal Aid Highway Act, affordable housing tax credits, support for Ukraine, and an urgent call for blood donations.
We also must note that the House expressed its deep sorrow on the death of Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina by passing House Resolution 1424, adjourning the chamber as a mark of respect.
On a local note, House Resolution 6332 was passed to designate a post office in Fairfax, Virginia, as the Congressman Gerald E. Connolly Post Office Building.
Finally, we have a substantial list of new nominations to track. Todd Blanche has been nominated to be Attorney General, and Walter Clayton is nominated to be the Director of National Intelligence.
For federal agencies, Erica Schwartz is nominated to lead the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and Sean Kaufman is nominated as Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response at the Department of Health and Human Services.
We also have Michael McDonald nominated as Chairperson of the National Endowment for the Humanities, Brett Matsumoto as Commissioner of Labor Statistics, and Kara Marie Westerkamp as a Judge of the United States Court of International Trade. Jeffrey T. Kuntz is nominated to be a United States District Judge for the Southern District of Florida.
Rounding out the nominations, we have James Macy and David M. Prouty nominated to be members of the National Labor Relations Board, with Prouty being a reappointment.
As we wrap up, listeners should keep an eye on the Senate Committee on Rules and Administration as they consider the election finance bills, and watch for how the House moves forward with the daylight saving and firearms purchasing debates established under the framework of House Resolution 1423.
That is all for this episode of Capital Catch-Up. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.